Hello and welcome to the Oilers Live podcast. I have as my guest today Paige, who is a writer slash blogger, has a website at 24crosschecking.ca. Thanks for joining me, Paige.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going great. So, I just before we started recording, I mentioned that to you that a lot of the good stuff that I have on my podcast happens offline when I'm not recording. And as I'm saying that to you earlier today, I'm thinking, holy crap, we just had this great conversation. So, I'm glad that I hit the record button and we're going to get this out there and people can listen to us talk a little bit of hockey. And I'm so happy to have you. You were nominated, of course, from a number of people who were hoping to hear some of your insight and maybe hear what you had to say. And me, I just hoped maybe I could learn a little bit from you today. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds good. And thanks to everyone for nominating me. It's an honor.
Yeah, well, it's good. I like how you said everybody will get a voice to all of the stuff that you write, which is always good. So I told you I was going to ask you, what did you think of the game today, Coyotes Oilers game?
I watched part of the first period, and then I fell asleep. And usually when I fall asleep during the games, we have one of those Bud Light red lights, and it'll go off and that'll wake me up, and somehow I slept through that for the no goal. And I woke up and curling was on TV. I missed the game.
So there might be some people out there that would tell you that the curling was far more exciting than the Oilers game today.
I know.
Yeah. Did you catch the highlights?
I briefly caught about Cam Talbot going off about the officiating, or I just noticed a lot of swearing.
Even Connor went off in Connor fashion. I mean, he didn't quite go off on it, but he did sort of suggest that the officiating might have been a little off on the
it's about time
challenge.
Someone has to, and if it's the face of the NHL, they've got to do something. It's ridiculous.
So maybe that's a good thing for us to start. I said tonight, you and I, we wouldn't have an agenda. We'd just talk some hockey. We've got one question today that we have to deal with, and we'll make sure we get there, Marcus. But let's chat about the officiating, because actually, Marcus and I tweeted right after that challenge was denied. Actually, it wasn't denied because it wasn't us that did the challenge. So when the challenge went in the favor of the Coyotes, I tweeted out, "Is anybody surprised?" I didn't have to put anything else in the tweet because everybody understood what I was talking about. And Marcus, said back well, it was interference, right? And I don't disagree. I think it was interference. I think it probably wasn't or shouldn't have been a goal. I don't know. I guess the point is, for me, is when you've had 17 challenges, and I've still not been able to verify that, but I believe that's where we're at now. And that was, I think, Stauffer about 2 or 3 challenges ago said we had 13 or 14 challenges in a row, and then somebody just started adding from there. So from what I can tell, we're at 17 in a row that have gone the other way. So my point was to him was, it doesn't matter. Some of those were bad the other way, but the other team got the benefit of the doubt. We just have not yet this year had the benefit once, or for that matter, into last year. And you got to figure at some point, somebody has to say something. How long does that go? And is it the Oilers? What's your thought on that?
It really, at this point, well, I guess, let me backtrack. At the beginning of the season, when people were, complaining about it, it was becoming a narrative. It was like, maybe there is something going on, but at this point, it's just ridiculous. There's so many calls that they've missed, and so many, it's so frustrating as a fan and a viewer, right? You want them to call it right. And they've got how many cameras? And how much money do they spend on these cameras, right? Like,
yeah, that part I don't get. Yeah, that's the thing is, and they seem to, always, there seems to be one. The odd thing is Sportsnet doesn't have the same amount of cameras, but they always seem to catch the one angle that, most people will agree on.
Yeah.
But the NHL doesn't.
You think they would be using more cameras than just what they've installed, right? They would go to the viewership of Sportsnet. But, I'm not entirely too sure how that all works. And, oh my goodness, don't even start me on that blue line camera. It's so pixelated. I can't even.
Do you think they'll change that rule next year? I think so.
They have to. And the other thing that really frustrates me is the offside challenge. It should be X amount of time in the zone, and then you can no longer challenge. I don't care if you've been in there for 2 minutes. Why are you challenging it? You've established your back, your setup. Why?
Yeah, I've never actually heard that idea before. I'm sure it's probably been out there and I've just not seen it. But I've kind of thought something similar to that in the past, but simple enough, right? If you've been in there for 30 seconds or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. And it completely breaks the way the game is being played, right? I mean, if you call a goal, you have to add that time back on.
Yeah.
If it was 5-10 minutes later, right? I guess I've always wondered, could a team, go, how far back could they go? Is it only in the zone? Do they have to stay in the zone, or could you go back to the play prior if they?
Wow. Can you imagine? Oh, that would. Oh, once it messes up a playoff game, I'm sure they're going to have to do something about it. But for right now, it's not playoffs, right?
Well, I can't agree with you there because I mean, we saw the Anaheim game, right? I mean that no changes really came out of that, the Anaheim series, and I don't know. Is that
a big Stanley Cup game like Brett Hall?
Yeah. Fair enough. And it's kind of like the weather, right? I mean, we always remember bad years of weather, right? Or when it's snowing quite a bit. I'm actually based in Calgary. It's snowing quite a bit here this year, as it is in Edmonton. I've been to Edmonton lots. And you always think this year is the worst, right? Or crime is the worst this year. I think it goes the same with bad calls in NHL. For as long as I can remember, we've always hated the, whoever's dishing out and doling out suspensions or, bad calls by the refs. I went back early on in the season to kind of have a look at that, and YouTube is great because there's no shortage of information out there, and you can actually watch the plays like Gretzky's high stick on Gilmore that really cost the Leafs the series, and they might have even won the Stanley Cup that year. Do you think it's though legitimately, is it getting worse now, or is it just as I say, like the weather, it's just a bad year?
Yeah, I think, it feels like it's getting worse, like the weather. But I think if the Oilers weren't dropping as many games, fans wouldn't be so up in arms, right? If we were in a playoff spot, I don't think that would be what we were focusing on, right?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, we didn't...
Same thing with
so maybe so, but last year, I thought that Cassian was unfairly picked on. Right? It just seemed like anytime Cassian scored a goal, they'd call it back on an offside, whether it was offside or not.
Yeah.
And we were doing well.
You've got to wonder, too, if you're at your job and you piss off your boss, per se, or your HR person, are they going to be fair to you? Right? Maybe the same goes for them on the ice, right?
Yeah, so, and I've been thinking about that too. You bring up a good point. have the Oilers done anything to piss the league off?
Yeah.
Other than winning all those first round picks.
You mean the Connor McDavid that was gifted to us? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta wonder.
Well, I joked early on in the season. It was like we had Weidman on our on staff or something. Maybe we got him as a consultant for the reffing or something, because and I'm obviously a homer when it comes to this. It just feels like they've been against us. So here's my thing though, and I think that I have been a bit of a homer because I went to go basically. It might have been when Marcus was tweeting back and forth with me about the officiating, and I was going to suggest that we were being unfairly penalized versus the other team, and so I went back and looked at the past 10 games.
Yeah,
and which I was sure that in those 10 games, at least 9 of them would have been like 4 penalty calls against us and like 1 against the other team. And there were only 4 of those games where we actually had more against us than the other team.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I know. There were a lot of them that were even, like 3-3. But I guess, probably part of what goes into me feeling that way is we're so bad on the penalty kill that it just seems like we've had, an unusual amount called against us. I do think, though, that they've missed tons against Connor McDavid. I mean, that I think is...
And that's what I was going to bring up. It's like it's almost like they don't want to protect him. Like they don't want to earn that label of, they're calling calls just because he's Connor McDavid, right?
Well, even tonight, he got slashed a couple times. I mean, it's a regular thing. It seems every game. I'm watching for it. So, but I feel like the refs should be watching for it because this is, the face of a franchise. And but they're not, obviously, because I saw it a couple times. One in particular, I was yelling at the TV, and Connor got slashed, and then he went around and then Slepyshev got hooked down, and then they called penalty against the Coyotes. But I thought, until they called the penalty against the Hook, I was, I'm yelling and waking up the neighbors and all that. But anyway, yeah.
What worries me is he keeps getting slashed, right? And these guys are going to know, like, hey, we're not getting called for it. When's it going to turn into a terrible wrist injury or something, right? Like, I know they're very protective.
Well, it happened to Gaudreau, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that they slash him as much anymore because of that.
Yeah.
Like, I think what's got to happen is, Connor's got to break a finger or a wrist or something, right?
Right, and then the sky's going to fall. Not that it already isn't.
Well, yeah. No kidding. They did call a slashing penalty today.
Yeah.
Which is what sort of got me going even more. They called that one against Larson, right? And, I didn't think it was that bad. And, of course, that's the homer in me. But they called it. And so I was expecting, and then I was watching for it. And I thought, well, if they call one, maybe that's the kind of game they're going to call tonight.
Yeah.
But no, that was it. That's the only one they called.
Oh, it's terrible. Like I said, it's going to come down to a McDavid injury.
Yeah, and if it does, I mean, I don't know. Oilers fans might just burn down some type of NHL facility or something. We can be pretty unruly, I think, as fans when you piss us off. Oh,
have you seen on Twitter when someone says something bad about the Oilers or someone on Twitter, they all gang up and, I mean, they're a good family, but... You don't want to be on the receiving end. You want to be on the giving end.
Yeah, no, so true, so true. And I think for the most part the fans are pretty good, but yeah, we're like pack animals when we. It's like don't mess with one of us because we'll get you. Yeah, and there are a ton of Oiler fans. It's like I've worked in a couple offices here in Calgary, and I can tell you that the majority of the fans are Oiler fans both times. So
I believe it.
So it's good. It's good to have a good fan base, and obviously a loyal fan base, because if they weren't, we wouldn't have any fans, given our recent. I figure I picked the best year to be a podcaster, because it's not going to get any worse.
That's how I feel about right. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse some days, but it's a good song.
Yeah, well, so I asked the guy in Vegas, Ken from sinbin.vegas. I asked him, I said, what about the prospects? Do you follow the prospects at all? Because when you first, went about this, I mean, you probably knew everything about the team, but now that they're doing really well, do you even focus much on the prospects? Because that's, on my podcast so far, and this is episode 15, we've done a ton of prospect talk, only because we have to start looking at the future. We can't be looking at, what's happened this year or what's going to happen. And so, I don't know, has your writing been very similar, or, are you still focused mostly on the team and what's wrong with them?
In terms of writing for Oilers Nation, I don't really write about the prospects. They have someone else who follows up on them every week and gives them an update, and that's about it. But in my day-to-day life, yeah, obviously I'm munching on all of the prospects and Ethan Bear and Caleb Jones and all of them, because, man, you just want them to turn into Darnell Nurse.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah. Nurse has been not a surprise to me, by the way. I expected him to get better and better, but he's been really good this year. I've been happy with him. What? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say he's one of the only Oilers this year that hasn't really lost that swagger from last year. Like, he's still
he wants to win, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He hates losing. I love that about him.
Yeah.
So then tell me, let's chat a little bit about the Oilers, and let's talk about the team. I know, we talked before I hit record about what we think of the front office and everybody else, and we'll get to that. Let's talk about the product that's on the ice. You didn't watch today's game, but I can tell you, outside of the first period, it was pretty much the same as it's always been. So there's not, you wouldn't have got any additional insight out of today's game. And I think maybe what hurt me the most about today's game was this was Larsson's game back, right? And I kind of I expected something from this team. Some spark or something to get out of the funk that they're in. Play for a guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you can't play for the logo on your jersey, play for a guy and just get him a win, right? So anyway, let's talk about this. What's just in a nutshell, I mean, if you could summarize, some of the major issues you think with the team right now.
I love Milan Lucic. I think he's a fantastic player, and I have quite a few friends in the hockey community, obviously. So when the Oilers signed him, one of the guys that I know down in LA was like, "You're going to get a guy that's going to hold his team accountable. He's going to play hard. He's going to be gritty. He's going to nail everything." And I mean, where is that? Where has it gone?
Yeah, well, he's sixth in hitting in the league. I don't know if you heard that.
Well, hitting, I mean, I feel like I don't. At times, it feels like, where is it? Right, like when you need it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and so I think let's just put this disclaimer out there, because I'm finding there's so much negativity on Twitter and everywhere that a lot of the good folks that are, true analysts or, love the game but want to analyze it will always talk about the individual and how they're, really decent people. And I believe that of all of these guys, that they're all good guys. And, well, there's the odd one that's a real ass, but but we'll just put that out there that, if we're going to talk about the players, we're talking about what they're doing on the ice and certainly, what they might bring to the dressing room. Because I do believe, I see Lucic, he's, involved in the community and a lot of different things. He brings, he's also seems to be accountable to his own mistakes.
Yeah.
When he's done any interviews, he seems to acknowledge the fact that he's not playing up to where he should be. But that's you're right. I mean, you're dead on, right? Like, this is a guy I've been salivating over the possibility of getting Brady Tkachuk because we don't have an asshole on this team.
No, I agree.
Yeah, we need one, right? And I thought it might be Lucic. Like, I thought, who did he call out in that in the handshake lineup? Geez, seems like forever ago. But that was the guy. That was the guy that I hoped we were getting.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want to, you can be a nice guy and give back to the community and do all that shit when you get off the ice. But when you're on the ice, I want you to be an asshole. I want guys to hate you. I want them to be chirping you. I want them, I want them to, like, I want every team to, like, say, Lucic. Like, I have a fuck Kessler shirt that I got from Beer League Heroes. Right?
Really, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I want a fuck Lucic shirt, in Calgary, right? Like, I want guys to be wearing that in Calgary, but they're not.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You planted that seed in my head. I want Brady Tkachuk. I want him to have to face his brother in the Battle of Alberta.
Oh, wouldn't that be? We've been talking about this a couple of episodes that I've done. Apparently, he is meaner and better. And I've not watched a number of his games. I've watched him in the World Juniors, and I picked up bits and pieces of some other games. But my understanding is he is better and meaner than Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah.
Which, would just be awesome.
Did you see what their dad said about Matthew?
No, I didn't. But please tell me, because their dad too, right? Like, he's,
in the family.
He's, yeah, totally. So what did he say?
He said that he has a face that you just want to punch.
And it's true, right? Like, so here's the thing. We're talking about penalties on McDavid. How does the league let Matthew Tkachuk get away with what he does?
Oh, I know.
And not call him, like, do refs not? I know they do. I'm being facetious, but, like, do they not get scouting reports before a game? Like, hey, maybe watch Tkachuk because he's dirty and he might draw a penalty. You might see the second half of what happens, but maybe you might want to call them both, right?
Yeah.
They just don't seem to care that he, or watch him. Like, if I was on the ice, if I was reffing against him or with him on the ice, not against him, I guess, probably lose my job pretty quick. But I'd be watching him, right? Like, I'd be giving him the Cassian treatment.
Yeah.
Right? But they're not. Instead, he's drawn more penalties than Connor McDavid, the fastest guy in the league.
Why?
And I watch Flames games. Like, I watch almost all of them. I watch them because I hate them, right? Like, I hate the Flames.
The only hockey game that's on TV, apparently. Sportsnet has all of these rights, but I have to watch the Flames. I can't watch Toronto or
Yeah, there's that too, yeah. Well, on Saturdays, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we know Flames hockey if you're in Alberta.
Yeah.
And we get this sort of, if you're like me, I mean, I literally, and I'm not sorry for it. I hate the Flames. They're our biggest rivalry. I hate them. I cheer. I've said on this show a number of times, I've got two favorite teams, the Oilers and whoever is playing the Flames. In fact, I've got a buddy here in Calgary that is a Buffalo Sabres fan. Yes, there is one. And we went to the Flames game and the Oilers game. They were back-to-back January 22nd and 23rd. The Sabres were in town. I wore a Sabres jersey here to the Flames, to the Dome. And the Sabres won. So, I have some fun with it. Of course, then the Sabres came and my buddy had the time of his life in Edmonton because we were staying at the, actually I won't say just because I don't want people stalking the players, but we were staying at a hotel and they were there.
Very fancy and expensive hotel.
That's right. Yeah. So we were staying at this hotel, and we rode the elevator up with Kyle Okposo, who, by the way, I thought was actually a Sabres fan. And my friend was, he's talking to him on the way up the elevator, and we get off the elevator. He said, and I said, "Oh, was that guy from Buffalo?" He goes, "That was Kyle Okposo." I'm like, "Oh, damn, really?" And then we rode the elevator down with Larson, and I didn't see Evander Kane, but my guess is he was too lazy to get out of bed or something. He was the biggest disappointment of watching the Sabres 2 games in a row. If we at all trade for him at the deadline, I will personally call for Girelli's head, and we'll get into that.
What about Eichel?
Eichel was fantastic. Like, watching him live, he is so good. That guy is unreal. Like, he is, he's not McDavid, obviously, but he is really good.
I saw him his rookie year at Rexall, and my favorite memory is chanting McDavid's better with all the fans while he was on the ice every single time.
Well, that's not really an Eichel memory so much as it's a fan memory. But yeah, my friend that's the Sabres fan, they were, as any Sabres fan, all 5 of them were pretty upset about that draft lottery that year. Of course, there were, they all had McDavid Sabres jerseys already made. Yeah.
Oh, man. I was sitting in a Chili's in Calgary, and when they drew the Oilers' golden ticket, I was like, "Woo!" And all these people were like, "Shut the fuck up."
So we're going to go to a break here right away. But before we do, let me tell you, the quickest way to shut people up in Calgary when they make fun of the Oilers is you won't be laughing when you see Dahlin on our team next year. And they shut up pretty quick because they know it's possible now. All right. And with that, we'll go for a break. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit of Oilers hockey again.
Oilers Live Podcast.
And welcome back to Oilers Live Podcast. I've got writer, blogger Paige, who writes sometimes for Oilers Nation and has her own site, too, for crosschecking.ca. We're talking Oilers hockey and just hockey in general, having a little bit of fun today. Let's continue to chat about the Oilers. And you mentioned Lucic as potential. We got into the thing about having an asshole on the team. I think we're in agreement there. What other things you need to change? What do you think about Talbot right now? I mean, what would you do with him? What do you think of his play so far this year?
Sports psychologist. Try that out first. Maybe some hypnotization.
Did you bring that up earlier, or did somebody else bring that up?
Was that you? Me? No.
Because that was, I saw a Twitter. I think I saw a tweet about that earlier, and I thought that might actually be legit, like something good.
A few years ago, they hired some lady. She was a sports psychologist, and she came in and worked with them. Obviously, it didn't work very well, but maybe it will work this time for Cam.
Yeah. Well, this is maybe the most unreal sort of streak and stat, and we've had some crazy stats this year, right? But what is it, 12 games first shot?
Wasn't it 11 or 13? I don't It's too many. Whatever number
it's over 10.
It's
Oh, I lost you a little bit.
no.
No, now you're back. You're back. I always think though when I lose audio, that is probably when you said your most brilliant stuff. And so we'll go with that. So for those of you that didn't hear it, if it doesn't make it onto the recording, Paige said something absolutely brilliant and too brilliant to repeat. So anyway, so the sports psychologist was it a hypnotist or a psychologist that they had before?
But we could try hypnotist unless you think. Can you imagine that? Oh my God. Professional goalie thinks he's a chicken.
So I think it was, speaking of, like odd things, and this is way off on another tangent. I did have a astrologist on my show in like episode 3 or 4. And she is, in fact, or she claims, I've never verified, but I had no reason not to believe her, employed by 3 or 4 AHL teams.
Holy.
Yeah. So go figure. And U.S. hockey.
Looks like any career.
Yeah. So I did ask her about the Oilers, and you know what? I can't remember. I should go back and re-listen because we had I think we had too many fire signs or something. I don't know. Maybe we don't have enough fire signs. Maybe that's what it was.
Well, we have
I don't remember. Okay. Yeah, tire fire sign. Okay, so back to Oilers hockey. So what's your honest thought though on Talbot? I mean, outside of the sports psychologist, is he going to come back? Is he going to be the same guy he was last year, or is it time to move on?
I'm praying to the great Gordie Howe in the sky that he's going to come back, and I'm just hoping maybe he's just nervous that over last year and he's thinking about it too much, and maybe he'll take the summer off and figure. I hope he comes back. I think he will.
So if you were GM though, I mean, what would you do? What kind of a leash would you give him? Because he's been, let's call it out, he's been awful, right? Like he has not stolen, and maybe not awful is not the right word, but I think that a goalie needs to steal, 20% of the games, right, for a team. You need to come out of the odd game where you said, man, Cam was just outstanding and he really stole that one for us. And he has not stolen a single game for us this year.
No, why don't you have a better backup? Why did you enter the season, putting all of your eggs in Cam's basket and hoping he would be the same again, right?
Yeah, and he had life changes too, right? It's not, you got to factor this stuff in. The guy had twins, right? That's a big deal, right? He's probably getting less sleep.
Probably, I would.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not like he just had one baby; he had 2 at the same time. That's awful, right? 2 crying babies in the house. That's I mean, it's great for him. Congratulations, Cam, if you ever listen. But hey, I get you. You're not getting any sleep. Are you coming back? So what kind of a leash would you give him next year, or would you just hope that would you pick up somebody that could be a capable backup and possibly a starter?
Well, obviously you can't ride into next season like you did this year. You're going to have the exact same thing fire up, right? When you have no confidence coming from your net. So they've got to figure out something with the backup situation. Obviously, Brossoit, they have no confidence in. And Montoya has another year left, and I don't know what it is about the guy. I'm not a fan. He just doesn't rub me the right way. And people are going to say that's what she said, but that is what I said. He just
they would be right on that. Exactly. So who's available? Do you have any thoughts in mind as to who we could pick up? Mrazek would be too high on the list, I think.
Oh, who was the number 3 guy that they had in Vegas? Dansk or something like that? Oscar Dansk, I think.
Yeah, Vegas had 5 goalies that could have beat the Oilers any given night.
So do you go for that and pray on that? Because they've got Subban and they've got Fleury, right? So
yeah, and the question always becomes is who do we have that they want, right? And I don't know. I mean, Vegas is, if you were to, I mentioned I had Ken on from sinbin.vegas, but he said, the general consensus or thought is they're not going to do much of anything. And they don't need to.
No.
Yeah.
If you could,
it would be great.
From that team, the amount of energy that they play with and put that into the Oilers, I think would be good. Is there any way we can trade for that?
Yeah, and so that maybe that's a good segue into how do we get that energy on the team, which then leads to, is this a coaching problem? And so, what's your thought on that? What's your thought on the coaching so far this year?
Well, I wrote an article shortly before Christmas about how I figured that McLellan had lost the room, and I still don't think that he has the room. They look lost out there playing the systems that they have in place.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't know if I feel like they look lost in the systems they have in place, but I maybe don't even like the systems they have in place for the team that he has.
Yeah.
Right? We were all excited as Oilers fans because we had a sought after coach that was coming to Edmonton. And I
was right up there. I was like, yeah, T-Mac is coming to Edmonton. I can't wait for this. And now it's kind of like, I feel like a San Jose fan when, they couldn't make it past the first or second round.
Yeah, we just can't make it into the playoffs after, somebody did joke the other day we should just get a new arena every year. Maybe let's start from the top because I'm leading into. I wanted to maybe talk about the players first, but I'm leading into really sort of the front office and coaching. Do you, if you had the power today, would you get rid of everybody? Like, how high up the chain would you go, and or would you just do one of the three or two of the three? My feeling, as unpopular as it is I would just replace. Well, I'd replace the whole coaching staff, goaltending coaching included, and Schwartz did a great job, with the younger guys in the past. But I just think either get him a consultant or wait until he's got more experience, right? And
I think he's still,
change that out.
Isn't he still working with the Oil Kings too?
Is he doing both?
I thought he was. I'm not sure.
Gee, that's just going to make me mad. I hope he's not. Because really, this team needs a full-time goaltending coach right now. Somebody to be working with these guys full-time. Paul Coffey's done wonders on defense.
Well, he's not full-time with the Oilers, right? He's still working with his son's team, and then he's flying out to Bakersfield, and then sometimes he's up here. So, I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I don't fault him at all. I just I questioned what it was.
I just Googled the staff directory for the Oil Kings, and Dustin Schwartz is still their goaltending coach.
Oh man. So back to my original question. What would you do? Would you get rid of? Would you clean house up top? And when would you do it? If that's the route you'd go, or how would you do this?
Well, starting from the very, very top, Bobby Nick. I can't remember who wrote this. But I read it earlier this year that Bob Nicholson has never had to deal with something like the Oilers before. When he was involved with Hockey Canada, they were all very successful teams. They had, the top talents, the top coaching. So he's never had to assess and figure out, what's going wrong. So is he the right guy for that position? Is he the right guy to be making calls for us.
Yeah, I think he is, but it's a good question to be had, right? I mean, he just had that big interview, right, with
About the top.
TSN.
What a thing to say when your fan base is very angry. I mean, it's not as bad as tier 2 fans, and I know a thing or two about winning, but that's still pretty bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. It's so anyway, so you're not going to come right out and say it, obviously, but you wouldn't be upset if Nicholson left.
No.
Is kind of what I'm hearing.
Join the IHF here in a couple of years in their presidency.
Yeah, so maybe it's a good out.
Yeah.
Who's available though?
Oh
right?
man.
Like, I mean, who knows? Right? But you think we could steal Stevie Y? You think he'd like to come to Canada?
That man, I don't know what it is about him. Whatever he does, everything seems to work in his favor.
Yeah, well, I mean, success follows him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't deny though. He learned, if he paid any attention when he was in Detroit, he learned from some of the best, right? Starting
up at the top there for sure, and then Chiarelli. Man, that man does not know how to manage a cap.
Okay, so are you on the? I mean, there's a lot of people that like hate Chiarelli and like despise him. In fact, he's probably the most hated person on Oilers Twitter, I would say. In fact, maybe he's the guy we need on the ice because I keep saying we need an asshole on the ice, and everybody seems to think he's. Yeah, can he lace him up? Maybe save on some cap space. Anyway, my feeling on him is right. Like, I'm not too upset with our prospect pool. I do think though Edmonton does have a challenge in that if I could play in Tampa Bay or I could play in Edmonton. I'd rather play in Tampa Bay, right? And so we're just going to pay that Edmonton premium year after year after year, and fans have to accept that a little bit. How much is that premium? Like, is it a Lucic premium or is it
Apparently, it's a Chris Russell.
I mean, we've. Yeah, Chris. It's a Chris Russell, who, by the way, leads the league in shot blocks.
I'm on the ice like a starfish because you've just blocked a shot and they still put it in the net. I'm not happy.
There are two things, if you've ever watched an Oilers broadcast, which we all have, and anybody who's listening will have, is Lucic is 6th in hits in the league, and Russell leads the league in shot blocks. And coincidentally, between the two of them, they take up $10 million in cap space. So that's what we're paying for. So what do you think Chiarelli's worst mistake has been?
The Lucic signing, I can't say it was his worst mistake because on the day that Lucic signed that contract, I was all for it, right? I think it's the Russell signing that really just irks me the wrong way. And don't get me wrong, I think Russell is a very capable NHL defender, but I don't think that he should have been given any of those extras in his contract.
Yeah, so I agree with you. He's capable. Yeah.
What has he done to earn them? Oh, I block shots. Oh, here's a no movement clause for you.
Yeah, I hate that no movement clause. I hate all of them.
Can I just say, people who are complaining about the Matthew Barzal and all that, like, please just stop. It's so annoying. Who knows if they were actually going to take him at the draft? I mean, they said they haven't, but like,
it's just something to pile on, right? Like, it's ridiculous. And I agree with you.
I try and be a very positive person and positive about this team, and when you bring up things like that, it just doesn't make it fun, right?
No, it doesn't. And in fact, it's a hard argument to argue against because it's not. It's completely like it's a fallacy. It doesn't exist. It's we don't know what would have happened if the Oilers drafted in that spot, and Vegas is a good example though of if you put a player in a certain position, they might play, better or, whichever, right? Like Vegas has found the right spot for a lot of these players that, wouldn't be like Marchessault, on another team, I doubt has the same stats that he has, unless if he's on Vegas. So, if Barzal was playing, for the Canucks, right? And everybody knows how much of a shit show the Canucks are. And I just had to put that in there, by the way. That was purely just to get a jab in there. But if he was playing there, I mean, would we be noticing him the same? Probably not.
No.
Right? That's my thought. So what else? Like trades wise, what do you think? People, what bugs me actually, so the Barzal thing bugs me. People are always on about the Eberle-Strome trade. I'll tell you before I get your opinion. My only thought on that trade is what Chiarelli didn't do after the trade, which is use the extra cap space to fill the void of Sekera. Now, beyond that, I'm all right with that trade because everybody in the world wanted Eberle traded. Everybody was talking about cap space, right? And signing Draisaitl and Connor. And we knew we weren't going to get an Eberle back, right? So I was good with that trade. It's what he didn't do after that sort of irked me. But anyway, what's your thoughts on just all the trades in general that he's done up until now?
The Griffin Reinhart trade, man, I don't like it, but I think that's a Bob Green thing that he was pushing him to do that. But yeah, back to the Eberle trade. Like, I think he at least should have gotten some magic beans back and trade some picks. Yeah, that wouldn't have been bad. I agree. Maybe he didn't. Do you think he just didn't hold out for enough? I mean, he didn't on Hall, right? Like, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm actually a big Larson fan. Like, I think, and everybody was last year. Yeah. So all of these jackasses that are saying this year that it was such a bad trade at the end of last year are the same people that were saying, oh, like he came out shining on that one, right? Yeah. But funny how, a losing season can make everything in retrospect seem awful. But anyway, I mean, I still think he could have held out for more on Hall and held out for more on Eberle. Is that, or do you think people are just, they know that Edmonton's going to take what they can get? Yeah, I think Chiarelli probably has a really bad reputation around the league right now with GMs. Like, he must be the guy that they all make fun of behind his back because of the trades he's made and the things that he's done, even in Boston.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, Seguin's not that good.
But can you imagine you're going to an NHL general managers meeting and like he's probably being made fun of, like him and Ken Holland.
Yeah, and oh man, I'm not an apologist for Chiarelli by any means, but he's done some really sort of crazy trades. If you want to ever go, do you use NHL Trade Tracker?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, you can go there and you can actually do trades by GM.
Oh no!
And you can look, so you can go and look. It goes by year, but they do by GM. So you just go and Chiarelli, they'll have his years in Boston and 2006 to 2015. So you can go back and kind of have a look at everything he's done. And I would love, I'm going to have some stats guys on, but I would love to kind of go back and sort of see what his, I don't know how you grade a trade, but maybe go back and just sort of grade every GM that's in the league and sort of kind of get an idea of who's actually good, like who's brought return for their team and who hasn't, who's traded away the most picks and who hasn't, right? Like if you went and you did that as another GM, you might kind of get a feel for I need picks, and I know this guy likes to trade picks, right? Like, that might be
trades right now with Boston, and I'm like, why didn't the Oilers look at this before? Oh my God.
Well, he won a cup, right? Like that's what it was about, right? Like he won a cup, so he had to be good, Maybe you have to ask yourself why Boston let him go, though, right? Like, yeah, it is kind of crazy. I'm looking at it too. That when I look at that Seguin trade, that's crazy. Seguin, Beverly, and Button in 2011. If you go, that's just on the first page. He traded away Colburn and a first-round pick and a conditional second-round pick for Caberlet.
I know, I saw that, and I was like, man.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a good site, NHLTradeTracker.com. You can go, trades by player, notable deals. I'll usually use it before I interview other people from around the league. I'll usually have a look at what trades they've done in recent years. This one goes back, if you go on the main page, it even goes back to like old teams like the Colorado Rockies or the Whalers, and you can check out some of those old teams. I don't know how far back it goes. Well, it looks like 1918, 1919. It's safe to say you're on the Chiarelli needs to go bandwagon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so back to Nicholson. I mean, when would you do it? Would you have done it already, or would you, if you were Nicholson today, would you have said, "Look, like this is just unacceptable. You need to go and get somebody in before he makes any damage at the deadline," or would you wait till the season's done?
No, I would absolutely do it before the deadline. Like, this guy is so, I don't even know how to describe it. He's so trigger ready to make these trades, and they're crazy.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I said I'm on the fence, right, on him. I would wait till the end of the season. But my biggest thing would be getting rid of the coaching staff. Oh
yeah, I don't know what McClellan's doing with his assistants, running the power play and the PK. Like, it's just not good.
Yeah, I just think that at some point, right? Like, it took them until, what was it, mid-January before they made any changes, right? Like, they just kind of kept the status quo and hoping that the Oilers would get out of this funk. And they never made any changes to the PK. They didn't make any changes to the power play. It was the same squad, the same format, the same everything. Yeah. And, I mean, like, I've just never seen anything like that before, where, everybody talks about, so-and-so is the kind of coach that puts their, lines in a blender, and they've said that about McClellan a million times, but I've not seen it. I've seen it lately, but lately is too late, right? Like, we wasted half a season before he started trying to find, players to play with, play on the power play. I mean, this is far and away the worst special teams in our decade of darkness. We never even had a year like this with penalty kill and the power play.
I was going to say, and how much talent do we have? Like, it's unreal.
Yeah, and I completely disagree with anybody that thinks Draisaitl's taken the year off. Like, I like this. Like, tonight, you didn't watch it. I guess it wasn't tonight, but earlier today, and you missed it. But I thought he played a good game. I thought he was one of the players that was out to play. But Draisaitl and McDavid, to me, that's a core that you can win Stanley Cups with. And I don't buy into this wasting the entry level contract, right? I mean, sure, yeah, we'd hope that maybe we'd get a second playoffs out of it. But you can't count the first year because McDavid was injured for half of it.
Yeah.
And last year we did. We did as well as could be expected, and we lost a series on, we could go back to the first segment. We lost it on some really bad calls by the reffing. And I'm good with saying that. I don't care if people think I'm a homer. That was legit. We lost on bad calls. And so you can't fault them for that. But this year, right, we regressed to a team that is near the bottom of the league and looking at another top draft pick. But I think that we've got 8 years of Draisaitl and McDavid. We can build a Stanley Cup team. The Penguins have done it. Maybe now I'm at the end of this episode I'm going to be firmly on the Fire Chiarelli bandwagon too. But right now my biggest thing is we need to get a new coach. Like McClellan hasn't won anything ever,
yeah.
Right? So we need somebody who wants to win.
Like, we just need a coach who isn't stubborn, who's willing to take risks. How long did they leave Letestu on the power play and that wasn't working? Like, try something new. Why are you benching Puljujarvi? Because he's picking his nose with his tongue? Put him out there.
And that might be legit. We don't know. Maybe we broke that on Oilers Live.
But honestly, why weren't we trying all of these new things? You have to take risks. If you want to be an NHL coach, you can't just stick to your guns. Things aren't always going to work. Yeah,
and he didn't make any changes. He kept the same thing. Until I want to say mid-January.
Yeah,
is not much changed. And now that it's too late, things change every game. They do and they don't. I mean, we start the game with these wacky lines, and then we see Draisaitl and McDavid together again. Well, I don't know why you'd want 3 good centers anyway. That just seems silly, doesn't it? I'm going to call this the sarcasm episode.
Have you read my rating call?
No, I haven't. Is your latest one just filled with sarcasm?
Usually, sometimes I try and link it into some sarcasm and some witty references, and lately I haven't because there's nothing good to talk about. It is. I was like, it's a Charlie Brown Christmas for Todd McClellan because literally the man is depressed.
I've got to think how I don't know how they keep him there any longer, and it's just the only reason I can see is that we've had all of these coaching changes over the last 10, 11 years that we don't want to go through that again. Good time for a break. We'll take a quick break.
Oilers Live Podcast.
Welcome back to segment 3 of Oilers Live Podcast with Paige, writer, blogger, sometimes on Oilers Nation, sometimes on twoforcrosschecking.ca. We're just having a little bit of fun and talking some hockey, and in between audio problems, when Paige says her most brilliant stuff, we get her online, and we've been talking about the Oilers front office staff, which if she's on as Oilers president tomorrow, better watch out because there'd be a house clearing. Let's before we get into talking about the Oilers again, we did have this is actually about the Oilers. A Washington Capitals fan living in Edmonton. So there's not a lot of those that you see, but also probably one of the better Twitter folks out there for hockey commentary. You can find him at Sport Major. Asked us a question, and this question was, what, if any, interest would Oilers put in UFA John Carlson? Now, if you don't know John Carlson, he's playing for the Washington Capitals this year. He's a right-handed D-man. I think he's got about 45 points, if I'm not mistaken. I do know that he's got over 20 points on the power play this year, which Marcus did point out is probably a good deal because he's the setup man for Ovi, which I would love as my day job. What do you think? Do you think the Oilers could make a play for him in the off season? And if they could, he's I think he's at about $4 million cap hit right now. So he's 28 years old and due for a raise, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, those numbers, whether or not they're OV exaggerated or not, right-handed D-men seem to be a hot commodity right now. Do you think the Oilers could do it? Do they have room? I think they definitely probably have to move Sekera, though, in order to get it done. What's your thought?
Yeah, obviously they're probably going to be interested in him. Right-handed shooting D-man you need. But just the cap crunch.
Yeah, I mean, what could we do to open up something like that? I think that might even be like a Sekera Clefbaum sort of thing, right? Where you'd have to.
No, don't talk about trading Clef Bay.
You know what? I don't believe in trading him, so I'll put that out there but his name keeps coming up. And, don't ever have an off season for the Oilers because the fan base will trade you damn quick. Right? Yeah. Eberle was never to be traded after his very first game in the NHL. And then, not long after, everybody was yelling for his trade. So, yeah. So I think you'd have to move Sekera for sure. My question, because his name does come up too, now that he's had injury problems. I don't know anybody that would take him.
Yeah, and that's.
Would you take Sekera?
No,
I don't think so.
Not having a good year. He's got injury problems. Just came back from surgery. He doesn't look great.
Yeah, it's not that I think he's a bad player, and I don't want him on the Oilers. But that there's not much. I keep saying I'm not on the Fire Chiarelli bandwagon, but I might be by the end of this episode. We're in a bad spot, and we need to get rid of some of these higher end contracts to find some wingers and another like a capable D man, and whether that's right or left D to me doesn't matter. Right D would be great, but we need somebody that can play John Carlson type of minutes. The guy plays 25 minutes a night.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have anybody right now that can do that on a night in, night out basis and not make, childhood mistakes, right? Like I love Darnell Nurse. I think he's just better and better and better. And that's another contract we have to deal with. But I wouldn't feel comfortable playing Darnell Nurse a full season of 25-minute games. Not yet.
No.
Right? Like, I think that's just a recipe for failure right now. I sense that you disagree with me on that.
A little bit, Cuddy, but that's all good. I think they've handcuffed themselves a little bit, though, with their the contracts that they've got. They've got to move guys out, and Clefbaum definitely isn't a guy that I want to move on yet. I'd love to give him one more year and see if he can rebound.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on Clefbaum. I would hate to. Some people said it, which I think is right. You move Clefbaum out, and then 2 years from now, he's the guy that scores the game winners on you in round 2, right? Yeah. And I'd hate to see that. And at $4 million, I think that's reasonable for a guy that you expect him to be.
Yeah.
Right? He's only 24 years old. That's not bad. In fact, his contract and the Larson contract are the best 2 defensive contracts we have right now.
Oh, absolutely. I think the ship has sailed on Matt Benning, though, this season.
He's not getting better. He's getting worse. I don't know. Good kid, but he just and McClellan obviously sees something in him that the rest of us don't, because he keeps playing him in these situations that I just think you don't play a guy in if you want him to have some confidence, because he keeps giving the puck away.
Yeah.
Right? I always think it's bad. I've got a number of friends, which you probably have the same, that are the kind of fans that watch once every 3 or 4 games, right?
Yeah.
and they don't listen to all the podcasts and all the blogs, and they don't, they don't do any of the stuff that we do as like these hardcore fans, like, and but when they notice a player, I always think it's for a good reason, right? And Benning is one of those guys that all of those friends that I have that don't watch a lot of Oilers still notice Benning giving the puck up all the time.
Yeah.
It's that noticeable. It's not good. I don't. So do you think you think anybody would even pick him up? Like, could you get a third? Well, I would say, what did Toronto just traded for a 4th round pick with? So we probably, yeah. Yeah, but that's not a bad D man. Better than Benning. So what's that? Where's that put the market on Benning? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe like ECHLer. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's a tough one. Like, he's an RFA next year. I bet you he doesn't. I bet you he's not qualified, right?
They'll walk like they did with Osterley, right?
Yeah. That's which is too bad, because I think we expected way more out of him. But Davidson, since he's been back, and even before he left, right? I've been reasonably happy with him.
Been a big Davidson fan since day one, so disappointed with.
Yeah, and the kid wants to play, right?
Oh yeah, and he's the local guy too, right? I mean, Tabor.
Oh, is he from Tabor? I didn't realize that. I think, like, we need players like that want to play and want to win, right? I don't spend any time in the dressing room, obviously, so I don't know exactly who those guys are, but there are some that it's more obvious than others. Darnell Nurse is definitely one of them. Davidson is another guy that seems to want to win night after night. Connor, of course, but there's some guys on the team that, I question whether or not they're just, out to play hockey, right? Win or lose. And then there's guys that, they just have a competitive streak. I mean, yeah. Darnell Nurse is probably number one on that. Like, I've not seen a guy that, like, he hates losing. He hates, like, the look on his face when the other team scores and he's on the ice is priceless. He hates it. He's mad. Yeah.
I really think it's in their genetics, though. Like, look at that family. Look at all of them. The basketball players, the soccer player, or not soccer.
Football.
Yeah, hockey. Like, it's crazy. It's unreal how competitive that family is.
Yeah, and that's great. I think we need more players like that. That's what when I talk about having an asshole on the team, that's what that's like. Like, guys like that can be assholes on the ice. They're the guys that when you're playing, and I play a ton of rec hockey, they're the guys that you hate, because, like, it's just rec hockey. Why do you want to win so bad?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I'm that guy, actually, sometimes. Do you play any hockey, by the way?
I did growing up. And then I played competitive golf at the same time, and I went to the World Long Drive Championships when I was like 13 and met some schools down there, and they said, hey, you should take golf more seriously. And so I stopped playing hockey and started playing golf all the time. And now I just play at the outdoor rink whenever.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's still good. You get out and play a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I went to high school with Jason Strudwick.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and so I've actually asked him if he would mind recording an episode with me, and he said yes. We just haven't scheduled it yet. But I have to laugh because there's two things I love to do. One is I love this. I'm really enjoying podcasting. Like, this has been a lot of fun. I've met some great people, yourself included, and people from around the league, and just a number of really quality people. So that's been fun. And I joked about it, like, schedule time to talk about hockey. Yes, please. Right. Like, this is great. And then the other thing I do is I actually play a ton of hockey. I play 5 or 6 games a week. And like, I love the game. When I'm not watching it, I'm playing it. And I play on some pretty competitive teams. I play on 3 different teams, and I've got 3 different shinny games that I play, guaranteed. And sometimes I pick up a couple other games. Like the year that we had the lockout.
Yeah.
I counted that I played 88 games that year, and during what would have been the NHL season, right? Yeah. So I played a full slate of games plus 6. Anyway, point is, I pay to play, right? I pay to play hockey, and to be honest, I'm not doing the podcast to make any money. I don't have sponsors. I don't do any advertising. So I pay to podcast. So if I have Strudwick on, I have to laugh because he got paid to play hockey, and he's a broadcaster now, and he gets paid to broadcast.
He's living your dream.
He is living my dream. Yeah, he's doing what I would pay to do. He's doing and getting paid to do. But either way, it's great. What I remember of him from high school is he was a really good guy. So I'm looking forward to chatting with him. Most of these guys, I think, generally, they're popular folks, and they're usually pretty good in those times. I can't remember my point though in asking the question. I think. You know what? We've got. This is the problem when you don't have an agenda when you get on, and you didn't. If you had watched the game, we could be talking Coyotes Oilers today. We could have just inserted any team name and talked about the Kings and the Oilers too, or Anaheim. What do you think of this losing streak right now? Like, are we going to snap out of it anytime soon?
I think we're in trouble on Tuesday. Boston just lost to Vancouver, 5-0? Like, you think Patrice Bergeron's going to come in here and be okay and just skate around? No, I think they're going to come hard after the Oilers.
Yeah, we if we say we lose to Colorado tomorrow, and then we lose again, like, at what point, if you're Cates even, do you say that this is acceptable? Right? Like, and I don't care that Nicholson, you've kind of said we're staying the course for the remainder of the season. Is there a point where you start asking yourself, like, people aren't going to, show up to games anymore? Right?
Yeah. And I think, I don't want him to be like Eugene Melnyk, who's now talking to the media saying he's going to fix Ottawa. But Cates needs to do something and not be, the ghost of the Oilers.
Yeah, and he's not living in Edmonton anymore, right? He's living in LA.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't quite have the same grasp of what the fan base is thinking anymore. But he's a competitive guy too, right? Like, you think he wants to go to the owners' meetings and sit beside, whoever, Melnyk, maybe even, right, who says, look, my team sucked less than yours this year, right? Like, he doesn't want that. Like, the guy in Bob Foley or Bill Foley in Vegas.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be rubbing that shit in Cates' face. Right? Like, what else? You got, you're worth $1 billion. What more, do you have to do, right? Like, now it's all about, you've made as much money as you're going to make. Now all you have is pride. And, I don't want to be the guy that says my team has sucked for 11 of 12 years. And it doesn't look like it's going to get any better unless if I do something. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't, how could we possibly know, I guess, but.
He's such a mysterious guy. That's the thing that really gets me about him, right? Like, at least with Melnyk, how much of a lunatic he is. like Paige, you don't know anything about, like, it's crazy.
I was at the San Jose game 3 in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
I went to San Jose when we lost, or game 4 rather. We lost 7-0. I was sitting right, pretty much right below Cates's, where Cates and Gretzky and Cates's son with the big red hair, where they were sitting. And I just, about period and a half in, I look up and everybody's gone except for Gretzky.
No.
Like they didn't even stay. Like I paid good money to go, right? Like,
Yeah.
they don't care, but they were so mad, right? Like they just left. And I would, I after that game, I was actually surprised we came back and won that series, but that was, I was at the Buffalo game when we lost 5-0. I was at the San Jose game. I have been at winning games, by the way. I was at the home opener this year when we beat Calgary 3-0. Back when we had playoff dreams. You remember that?
Oh yeah, I sure do.
So let's talk about that, because that is why I haven't been on the Fire Chiarelli bandwagon. Because there's nobody that I know, and you can tell me, maybe you weren't, but there's nobody I know that didn't think this was a playoff-bound team that had a shot at the Stanley Cup at the beginning of the season. And this is the team that Chiarelli, he built around McDavid, I guess, right? But nobody said then that, the Strome for Eberle trade was going to be the one that, made us lose or made us miss out on the playoffs again. Nobody said, without a defenseman in place of Sekera, that we're going to really miss Sekera this year. I think people talked about it, but they didn't think it was going to be enough. So, why is it, we did shitty now. If nobody else saw it, how can we blame that on Chiarelli?
Lots of people were talking about that in the summer, that Chiarelli hadn't quite done enough, right? He hadn't replaced Kara. Like, we didn't know how bad it was going to be, though, right? In the secondary scoring and in Strome's defense, how much did they hype him up in the preseason that he was going to play on McDavid's wing? And then what?
Yeah.
One game in, and you have McClellan losing his shit about, Strome didn't try hard enough, and then we haven't seen Strome on his line again until couple games ago.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, right? Like that, to me, that's a McClellan problem, right? Yeah. Like, here's a team that everybody, I agree. There were people. It's not that there was nobody calling out the moves and that. I think there were people that were saying you need to do more, and expected Chiarelli to do more sort of early on in the season, and he never did. Yeah.
I don't think anybody envisioned that it was going to be this terrible.
Yeah. What's your biggest fear out of all of this? Like, I think it's obvious. If you're like me, my biggest fear is, McDavid
request a trade.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't going to say it, but there you said it.
So it's all good. That's on a lot of people's minds. I think that's,
do you think he would?
It wouldn't surprise me. Like, he wants to win. And if it's not going to happen here, he'll probably do it somewhere.
What do you get for like, we're nearing the deadline here, and maybe we should be talking about oh man.
When you trade star players, granted, there hasn't been a star player like McDavid in a very long time, but when you trade high caliber players, the returns aren't normally, high caliber coming back. Like, you can't trade them straight up for an old Sidney Crosby, can you?
Well, maybe just to say Crosby played for the Oilers, Sidney Crosby in the next 10 first round picks.
Did you see Ovechkin joked about being traded?
No, I missed. Oh, I missed that. Was that recent?
Yeah, he said something about, oh, maybe I'll be traded sometime, like not now, but in the future.
Oh, jeez, Ovechkin. I love him because he's got no filter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good. We need more players like that. Remember Roenick? Like when Roenick would say something, it almost always made the news.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that even happened like 5 years after he was done playing. Like he'd still make the news. But yeah, Ovechkin's that. He's pure. Like Jerome Iginla. He never said anything bad ever. In fact, we haven't heard from him since. He hasn't officially retired yet, I guess.
Yeah, where is he?
Somebody, I think we were talking about it on an episode. Somebody said there's a reason he hasn't officially retired, like maybe insurance or something.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, you know what? I think it's too bad. He's one of the few Flames players that I liked. Right? Yeah.
Did you see
maybe because he's
the last part of that trade?
What was that?
They called up the last part of that Iginla trade that they still have a piece of.
Who was it? We can also do trades by player. And see Iginla. So that was the 2013 first round pick, probably. Yeah. So interesting. The Stars got Nieuwendyk, and the Flames got Iginla and Corey Millen. When that's December 19th, 1995. Holy crap! That's a long time ago.
It is.
It's like, it's hard to believe he played in Pittsburgh, right?
Right.
Like Agostino, Ben Hanowski. Like, I don't even know who that is. That's who the Flames got, but they got a first round pick. So I guess that's not too bad. Yeah. I don't know how we end up on the, this is clearly the most random of episodes I'm going to have. We're now talking Ben Hanowski. I'm going to have to do a Where Are They Now episode at some point. Yeah. Like Ben Hanowski makes it on to, I'm sure he was a good player. I don't know if he ever played a game with, do you know Ben Hanowski?
I don't know who he is, but I just Googled him. He's in Germany, and that's all that matters.
All right. So for those people that make it this far in the podcast, and they probably stopped listening like about 10 minutes ago, or probably more like an hour ago sometimes, I think. But yeah, so Ben Hanowski is in Germany, if you're wondering.
He played 16 games with the Flames.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's not bad. That's not a bad return for Iginla. 16.
When you trade star players, like, what you get back is sometimes terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, you're never going to get back. Like, you could not win a Connor McDavid trade, right? No. I mean, the Oilers got what? Jimmy Carson, and who else did they get for Gretzky? Was a lot of money was traded. That part that was purely a money trade. But we can go back. Now we're going way back. They got Martin Jelena, yeah,
and $15 million,
and 3 first-round picks. Wow. One of them was Jason Miller. That's exciting.
I don't even know who that is.
No, you can't even. There's not even a link to his name. That's how inconsequential that was. But hey, if you're Jason Miller and you're out there, you can say, "Yeah, I was part of that Gretzky trade." So that'd be pretty exciting. And cash. It just lists cash. So August 9th, 1988. And of course, you had to take McSorley with you. And do you ship out Lucic with McDavid? Because that's who was going to be protecting McDavid. Well, is it Maroon's job or is it Lucic's job? I mean, Maroon's the big guy he plays with, but I think Lucic is the guy that he is supposed to scare everybody away, right?
I guess
Isn't that what it like? I don't. That's a good question. Is it Maroon's job? I mean, Maroon's like a big teddy bear, isn't he? He's like a big sort of like he just doesn't instill fear in me, when I see him there. What's your thought on that? Like, he's a big guy. If he came down, barreling down on me, I'd probably have to change my jock strap. But I think I'd be more scared of Lucic than I would be of Maroon.
Yeah, no. I think Maroon's just a big guy, and that's about all he has. He doesn't have that fear that Lucic gives you.
Yeah. So you know what? We've been at this for an hour and a half, and we have not solved a single Oilers issue. So why don't we finish this off by just sort of we've got Colorado in town tomorrow.
Is it or is it there?
Or it's there. We're in Colorado. That's right.
Colorado's here.
Do you think we got a chance?
Yeah, I think so. I think with McKinnon out, absolutely.
Yeah, McKinnon. Like that's awful for them, and they're Colorado's they're in tough because they're in arguably the hardest division in the league, right?
Yeah.
The Central is ridiculous. Like, it's just Nashville and Winnipeg and Dallas and St. Louis and Minnesota. Like, I think the Oilers would be even worse if they were in that division than they are right now. If that's possible.
What's going to happen when Seattle comes into the league?
Yeah, well, I mean, I assume they'll just be replaced and they'll just stick where the Flames are now, right? I own the rights to two domains that I've never done anything with, but yycarena.com. I own in Quebec City Flames. So I've thought about doing some sort of mock account, but haven't gotten around to it yet. Yeah. Anyway, so you think we've got a chance tomorrow? I actually, I'm going to say, and this is the first time that I've said this, I don't think we're going to win.
No.
In fact, I would bet on it. If I was a betting guy, I would definitely bet on it. Colorado's they're not doing as bad as I thought they would with McKinnon out. But they're still, they're still a good team, right? Like they've got Landeskog and is McKinnon back tomorrow? When's he back?
I don't know. I thought it was like 4 to 6 weeks.
Well, the only reason I ask is I just looked at the other one, and the other sites I really like is rosterresource.com, and they usually update with the players that are going to play, and he's activated off of IR, so he's back. He's back in. So that's great news for the Oilers.
Well, at least I want to change my answer to we're going to lose.
Well, which might be a win. I mean, we might end up with a Svechnikov. We might end up with a Brady Tkachuk. It's a win. When you look at it, it's all in how you really frame the conversation.
Yeah.
And, a Dahlin. Can you imagine Dahlin feeding the puck to McDavid? I mean, I should do a whole episode on our first round what's that going to look like? Maybe we could, if we could trade for another first rounder, that would be awesome. Even like a couple shots at. So quickly, do you think Maroon is gone for sure?
Unless he's willing to take a very large discount from what he could make on the market, I think he's gone.
Yeah. Okay. And who else with him? Letestu seems to be. I don't know who would take Letestu. Is the problem that I have?
Yeah, I think Letestu, if you can find someone to take him. The other one for me is I keep wondering why they're giving Camilleri all these top minutes, and I think it's because they're shopping him.
Well, that's a possibility. Yeah, I could see that. I don't know. Again, it comes down to who are they shopping him to?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if it was a joke or if it was real, but somebody said that the Islanders scouts were at the game today. And of course, the last team you want Chiarelli trading with is the Islanders at this point. But apparently they were at the game. And if you're to believe clickbaiters, there's a Erik Karlsson trade coming up, massive multiplayer trade. Is that the worst or what?
Oh, absolutely.
What's that like rumor? And you know what bugs me about that is I work hard on my Twitter to get good followers.
Yeah.
And then this jackass, whoever it is, posts this crap and people retweet it. Like, it's like, slashing on McDavid. Like, if you're going to, encourage it, then it's just going to be worse. Okay. Seriously, last thing. What are your favorite sites out there right now? In doing this, the podcast, I've learned a lot of different sites. Everybody does Cap Friendly. That one's good. Rosterresource.com. Do you do that one?
Yeah.
Natural Stat Trick?
No.
Oh, well, are you an analytics person?
Not necessarily, but sometimes I'll get it.
Okay, well, so I will tell you that Natural Stat Trick is probably the go-to for anybody that does anything like player grades or anything like that. Naturalstattrick.com. And then another one is that Corsica.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do that one. Hockey Reference, of course, everybody does that.
Everybody.
Yeah. Any others that maybe I haven't mentioned? There's been, I've got a whole, literally a whole list of ones that people have given me, and more than I could. NHL Trade Tracker is one obviously I use.
Yeah, no, there's plenty out there. Lots of people just don't know about them, right? So.
Yeah, any though that I didn't mention that you might be able to call out.
No, I think we're all pretty much on the same page for pages.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, that's good. You know what? I keep finding new ones. And what about any podcasts that you listen to besides the obvious Oilers Live podcast, which I know you are an avid listener. I know the astrology one was your favorite. If you ever go back to listen to an episode, by the way, listen to the guy from Carolina, section 328. He's hilarious. And I'm gonna have him on again, but he was a lot of fun.
No, one of my favorite podcasts is that Elliot Friedman, the 31 Thoughts or whatever it's called, 31.
Yeah, that's reasonably new, right?
Yeah, and I mean I'm a big Elliot Friedman fan, so
yeah, too so connected. I want to get him on the show.
I want to have coffee with him just to talk about hockey.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If I can get him on the show, I will. I'll tell you right now. I'll get you on here. The three of us can have a conversation talk about Ben Hanowski. How he's doing in Germany. Because lots of people, you realize now, people will be listening to this to find out. This is where you go for your Ben Hanowski news. So, you want to know what's going on, this is where you go. Okay, well, I think, you know what, that's good on me. We did a lot. This is my longest podcast ever. So we're going to advertise the shit out of this. We're trying to beat, I think, 410 listens is what the record episode is. And so we'll try to beat that. Okay. I think we can do it. All right. Thanks, Paige. And have a great night.
Thanks.